Close your eyes for a moment, not to imagine anything, not to practice anything, not to try to achieve a certain state, just close them. Let your breathing slow down naturally, as if time has no pressure on it, because in truth, it doesn't. Notice the simple contact of your body resting where you are sitting. Notice how breath is already happening on its own, in and out, without you having to manage it, without effort or instruction. You are not manually keeping yourself alive. Your heart is not beating because you are reminding it to. The most fundamental processes of your existence are unfolding right now in complete, intelligent, effortless coordination. They have been doing this every second of your life without your control, without your stress, without your supervision. And now open your eyes again and consider something deeply. If the very force that sustains your life functions through surrender, if the intelligence that grows your body, repairs your cells, and circulates your blood operates without your anxiety, then why have you assumed that your desires require struggle? Why have you accepted the idea that the same intelligence that maintains your entire being needs your stress, your worry, or your effort to bring a relationship, money, health, or change into your life? Where did that assumption come from? Because what I want to show you is that most of what people believe about manifestation is built on a misunderstanding. They think life responds to force. They think if they are not constantly pushing, constantly striving, constantly exhausting themselves in the direction of what they want, then nothing will happen. So desire becomes something to earn. The universe becomes something like a strict authority, a kind of cosmic employer evaluating your performance, measuring how hard you tried before deciding whether you are worthy of receiving. And so people begin to practice from tension. They visualize with pressure behind their eyes. They affirm while carrying resistance in their body. They try to be grateful while still feeling the absence of what they want. It becomes an effort, a performance, something done under invisible judgment. And then they wonder why it feels heavy, why it feels like struggle, why the goal always seems close but never fully arrives, like something just out of reach, no matter how far they reach toward it. The reason for this is simple. Anxiety itself is an assumption in motion. When you move toward your desire with urgency, with desperation, with inner pressure, there is always a hidden conclusion underneath it. That conclusion is, it is not done yet. Every moment of frantic trying is actually a declaration of absence. Every forced affirmation is quietly reinforcing that something is still missing. Every technique done from need is broadcasting the same message into consciousness: this is not yet real. And consciousness, which responds not to effort but to assumption, simply reflects that back with precision. It does not argue with you, it does not correct you, it simply mirrors the state you are holding most consistently. So the experience becomes more waiting, more distance, more almost, more not yet, because that is the inner position being occupied again and again. And in that state, even progress feels unstable, because the inner foundation is built on reaching rather than having. The nervous system remains alert, scanning, trying to fix a future moment instead of resting in a present fulfillment that has not yet been accepted internally. So what is the alternative to all of this? It is not apathy, and it is not giving up. It is not sitting back in denial or deciding nothing matters anymore. It is not the dull indifference of someone who has stopped caring about life or has resigned from their own desire. The shift is much more subtle than that, and far more powerful. It is the movement from seeking to being, from efforting to embodying, from trying to receive to internally occupying the state of already having. When the mind stops treating desire as something far away and starts relating to it as something assumed, the emotional charge begins to change. There is no longer a frantic push toward a future outcome because the inner conversation is no longer built on lack. Instead, there is a quiet familiarity with the possibility that what was once hoped for is already unfolding in a deeper layer of experience, even if the outer world has not fully caught up yet. In this shift, action does not disappear, but its quality changes completely. Action is no longer driven by tension or fear of delay. It becomes a natural extension of identity rather than a desperate attempt to secure it. You no longer move because you are trying to fix something missing. You move because movement feels aligned with the state you are already occupying internally. Even silence becomes different. Waiting is no longer heavy because waiting itself is no longer interpreted as proof of absence. Time is no longer an enemy. It is simply a dimension in which inner states unfold into form. And when urgency fades, clarity begins to appear. You start to notice that much of what you called need was actually resistance to trusting what is already forming in subtle ways beneath surface perception. From this place, the relationship with desire itself transforms. Desire is no longer a signal of lack, but a signal of direction. It points you toward a version of self that is already accessible in consciousness. Instead of chasing it, you begin to settle into it. Instead of tightening around it, you relax into the identity that would naturally experience it as normal. This is where the inner reversal happens. You are no longer asking, "How do I get it?" but gently embodying, "What would I be like if this was already true?" And in that question, the nervous system begins to reorganize itself. The sense of separation reduces. The emotional urgency dissolves. What remains is a quieter, steadier sense of alignment that does not depend on immediate external confirmation. And over time, this inner alignment becomes the dominant pattern. Not because you forced it, but because you stopped feeding the opposite state. The anxious loop weakens not through resistance, but through disuse. You are no longer rehearsing absence in your imagination. You are no longer reinforcing distance through emotional intensity. Instead, you are stabilizing a different baseline, one where fulfillment is not a distant goal, but a present assumption. From this state, life does not feel like something you are chasing anymore. It feels like something you are participating in from within already established ground. And ironically, it is often from this quiet internal completion that external movement begins to reorganize itself most clearly and naturally. There is a particular calmness that belongs to someone who truly knows. It is a quiet certainty that does not ask for proof in every moment. Picture a woman in the early stages of pregnancy. There is nothing visible to the outside world yet. No movement that can be felt, no clear sign that anything has changed. And still she does not spend her nights in anxiety, wondering if life is forming. She does not try to force reassurance through constant checking. She does not rely on repeated signs to convince herself. She simply knows, and that knowing gives her a steady, unshakable ease. She moves through her day without panic, without inner negotiation, without needing the future to confirm itself before she allows herself peace. The lack of external evidence does not shake her state, because her inner conviction is already settled. This is the exact state being pointed to here. Not hoping, not trying to believe harder, not mentally struggling to hold on to positivity, but the simple inner acceptance that it is already complete, finished, already decided, already real in the only place it needs to be real first. And from that inner settlement, everything outward begins to align in its own time, without force, without strain, without urgency disguised as faith. Yet the mind has been conditioned to distrust ease. It has been taught in subtle and obvious ways that anything meaningful must be hard, that struggle is proof of value, and that if something comes too smoothly, then it must not be legitimate. Because of this conditioning, when you hear the idea of relaxing into certainty, a resistance often appears. It whispers that if you stop pushing, things will collapse, that if you stop worrying, you are being careless, that if you stop trying so hard, you are somehow giving up on your future. But beneath that reaction is a deeper assumption that deserves to be seen clearly. It is the belief that your effort is what holds everything together, that your worry has protective power, and that without constant mental control, life will somehow forget you. In that belief, anxiety becomes elevated into something important, something useful, even something necessary. But this is the quiet distortion. It places more authority in fear than in the underlying creative intelligence of consciousness itself. It assumes that struggle produces results, when in truth, struggle is often just the expression of inner resistance. And what you continuously assume, you continue to experience. If life is held in the feeling of difficulty, then difficulty becomes the pattern. Not because reality is fixed that way, but because your dominant state keeps reproducing it. When you actually enter the state of the wish fulfilled, something fundamental shifts. The constant mental noise begins to lose its structure. The internal dialogue that normally runs in the background, questions of doubt, fear of delay, worry about mistakes, uncertainty about timing, starts to dissolve, not because it is forcefully silenced, but because it no longer has a foundation to stand on. It depends entirely on the feeling of absence, and when absence is no longer assumed, that entire loop begins to collapse. In its place comes a quiet mental stillness, not empty but settled, as though something within has already accepted the outcome as real. The body follows this inner shift. Where anxiety once created tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, tension in the jaw, and a constant sense of inner readiness for problems, that physical state begins to soften. Breathing becomes deeper without effort. The shoulders release, the face relaxes. There is a grounded presence that replaces inner bracing. This is not detachment or numbness, it is arrival. A person in this state feels more present, more here, more quietly anchored in themselves. And from this inner alignment, life begins to respond differently. Events shift. Conversations unfold in unexpected directions. Opportunities appear without being forced. Solutions arise without strain. Not because effort was eliminated, but because resistance was. The external world reflects the internal assumption with a precision that feels almost uncanny until it becomes understood as natural law in motion. And still there is the question of action. Life continues. Choices must be made. Steps still need to be taken. This is not a philosophy of passivity, nor is it an instruction to withdraw from responsibility. The difference lies in where the action originates. There is action driven by anxiety, where every step is loaded with pressure, urgency, and fear of failure. That kind of action feels heavy. It drains energy because it is rooted in lack and tries to compensate through effort. Then there is action that arises from assumption, from an inner sense of already being aligned with the outcome. This action feels different. It is lighter, more natural, almost self-guided. You find yourself doing what needs to be done without inner strain, as though movement is flowing through you rather than being forced out of you. It is similar to how a seed grows once planted in good soil. The farmer does not constantly interfere, digging it up to check progress or worrying the process into acceleration. He plants and trusts the law of growth. In the same way, your assumption is the planting of the seed, and consciousness is the soil that responds to it. The law does not fail, does not pause, and does not require pressure to function. It simply expresses what is consistently held within. Your role is not to force the outcome into existence, but to remain settled in the inner state that already accepts it as real. From there, life organizes itself, quietly and precisely, into the outward reflection of that inner certainty. Your role is to plant with a real sense of knowing, not a forced belief, not a wishful idea, but a deep inner acceptance that what you desire is already established, and then to settle into it, to let it rest, to allow it to mature in the same way a seed is left in good soil, nourished by time, light, and natural law. You do not have to chase it, overwork it, or constantly check whether it is working. You simply remain in the state that it is already done. And from that inner certainty, life unfolds in its own intelligence, not because you earned it through pressure or proved yourself through effort, but because planting and harvest are not separate events in consciousness. They are one continuous movement governed by law. When the seed is placed correctly, growth is not a question of effort, it is a question of allowing. Your part is the placement, the assumption, the inner acceptance. After that comes a different mode of being, a quiet resting in the finished outcome. This is the state of Sabbath in consciousness, where creation is no longer something you are trying to achieve, but something you are resting within as already complete. And then come the moments that seem to contradict everything you are learning to embody. They always appear. Circumstances may intensify. Evidence may look opposite to what you are assuming. External events may rise in a way that feels loud enough to challenge your inner direction. In those moments, an old pattern will try to take control. It will say you were wrong to trust, wrong to believe, wrong to relax. It will suggest that you should return to struggle because struggle feels safer than uncertainty. But this is the turning point. You either react to appearances or you remain anchored in your inner knowing. You either let outer conditions define your state or you recognize them as delayed reflections of a previous inner assumption. To stay steady is not to fight reality. It is to understand it. You simply acknowledge what is appearing without surrendering your inner position. You say internally and quietly, "This is not new creation. This is old movement passing through." And then you return, gently, without force, back into the feeling that it is already settled. Each time you do this, your consciousness strengthens its trust in itself. The outer world begins to lose its authority over your inner state, and slowly, the need for proof starts to fade, because your inner knowing becomes more real than anything you can see. This is where the idea of Sabbath becomes living experience rather than concept. Sabbath is not a religious pause in time, it is a state of inner completion, where the work is no longer effort but acceptance. It is the moment where consciousness rests in what it has already accepted as real. There is nothing to strain for, nothing to secure, nothing to force into existence. The inner act has already been completed, which is assumption. From there, everything else unfolds as expression. And in that space, a simple but powerful question becomes useful. How would I feel right now if I truly knew this was already done? Not when it appears, not when it is proven, but if it were already complete in this moment. That question is not meant to be analyzed. It is meant to be felt. It draws you out of mental struggle and into embodied knowing. And when you touch that feeling, even briefly, you are not pretending, you are aligning. You are entering the state where the outcome already exists as inner fact. From there, life reorganizes itself naturally, not because you are forcing it, but because you are no longer resisting it. You are not here to earn what you desire. That idea itself is built on a deep misunderstanding that most people never question. It is the belief that life is a system of payment, where you must first suffer, struggle, prove, and sacrifice before anything good is allowed to arrive. But desire does not work like that. Desire is not a test placed in front of you, and fulfillment is not a reward handed out after exhaustion. What you want is not sitting somewhere outside of you, waiting for you to become perfect enough to qualify for it. It is not delayed because you are lacking something essential. In truth, the moment a real desire is felt inside you, it is already evidence that the possibility exists within consciousness itself. Life does not place desires inside you as jokes or traps. They arise because some part of existence is already aligned with their reality. So your role is not to chase, force, or struggle your way into receiving. Your role is to release the belief that you are separate from what is already yours in awareness. The more you try to earn it through pressure, the more you reinforce separation. But the moment you soften that mindset, something shifts. You begin to see that life is not asking you to prove anything, it is asking you to recognize what is already true within a deeper level of being. That recognition changes everything about how you relate to desire. Instead of treating it like something distant, you begin to understand it as something already alive in the field of consciousness. Every desire carries its own inner signal, and that signal is not pointing toward a future that must be built brick by brick through effort alone. It is pointing toward a reality that already exists in potential form, waiting for your inner agreement. This is why struggle often feels heavy and confusing. It comes from trying to create something externally that has not yet been accepted internally. When you see clearly, you realize the desire itself is not the problem. The resistance is. The resistance is the belief that you must become someone different before you can experience what you already feel drawn toward. But consciousness does not respond to effort in the way the world teaches. It responds to alignment. And alignment begins when you stop arguing with what you already sense within you. Instead of pushing the desire away or doubting it, you begin to hold it gently in awareness, as something already connected to you. In that space, pressure starts to dissolve. The need to rush disappears, and what remains is a quiet understanding that you are not separate from the outcome you once thought you had to earn. From that inner understanding, acceptance becomes the key shift. Not passive waiting, but a deep inner agreement that what you desire is already yours in the unseen. This is not about pretending or forcing belief. It is about allowing your mind to stop fighting reality at the level of imagination. You stop rehearsing lack. You stop reinforcing the idea that something is missing. Instead, you begin to live from the feeling that it is already done within consciousness. That feeling is subtle but powerful. It does not need noise or constant repetition. It feels like a settling inside yourself, like something finally relaxing after years of tension. When you accept internally, you are no longer negotiating with life. You are no longer asking, when will it come? Or how will it happen? Those questions belong to a mind still in separation. Acceptance removes that separation. It places you in a state where the inner world and the outer world are no longer in conflict. And in that state, you begin to notice a different kind of peace. You are not waiting anymore. You are resting in the assumption that what is meant for you is already unfolding, even if the physical form has not yet fully appeared. From that state of acceptance, your actions begin to change without force. You are no longer moving from anxiety or urgency. You are not trying to manipulate outcomes through pressure or overthinking. Instead, action becomes a natural extension of inner alignment. Decisions feel clearer because they are no longer driven by fear of missing out or fear of loss. You start to notice that the right steps appear with less mental struggle. There is less confusion, less hesitation, and less emotional noise. This is because action is no longer being used as a tool to chase something missing. It becomes an expression of something already accepted within. Even timing begins to feel different. You are no longer rushing life or trying to speed it up. You are moving with it. And when you move with life instead of against it, things that once felt blocked begin to shift in unexpected ways. Opportunities feel more natural. Conversations feel more aligned. Paths that were once unclear begin to open without force. Not because you are doing more, but because you are no longer acting from separation. In the end, this is not about controlling life. It is about resting in a deeper identity that is already whole. You are not someone trying to get something from a distant future. You are awareness itself, already connected to everything you once thought you lacked. When you remain in that inner position, even briefly, something begins to reorient itself within you. The neediness fades, the urgency dissolves, and what remains is a quiet trust in the unfolding of life. This is the essence of the Neville mindset. Not striving but remembering, not forcing but recognizing, not becoming worthy but realizing that worth was never absent. From that realization, life responds differently, because you are no longer meeting it as someone empty. You are meeting it as someone already aligned with what is meant to be.